Hello, welcome to I Think Biology NPTEL course. My name is Divya and I'm a faculty at Azim Premji University. Today you are going to be learning about figs. Figs, the queen of trees. I'm sure you would have come across figs and eaten figs either in its raw form or in its dry form. In fact, this is dried figs sold in the Delhi market. Figs were, in fact, one of the oldest plants to be cultivated, much earlier than wheat or pulses, which we cultivated them. So, in fact, it's as old as cultivation is as old as 9,400 BC. It's known that Aristotle mentions about fig and figs reproductive system. So people knew about figs, how to cultivate figs long time back. We will learn more about figs, specifically about different kinds of fig trees around us, why fig trees are so important, and Fig-wasp interaction. This is a mutualistic interaction, and we'll learn more about that. Okay, so you would have come across or seen fig trees. This is an example of a banyan tree here, and this is an example of a peepal tree, and this is known as cluster figs. I'm talking about all these trees as fig trees. Yes, they belong to the genus Ficus and they're popularly known as figs. Banyan tree, peepal tree are also fig trees, basically. They're Ficus, right? So, and another tree which you may or may not have seen is known as strangler fig. This, when it grows as a young tree, it takes support of another tree and then eventually that particular support tree dies, it strangles that, and then this becomes a big, really big tree. This is a photograph of abandoned temple or a broken down some kind of a temple where fig tree, strangler fig, has come out. All right, so figs are really diverse. Fig trees, there are around 750 species of them around the world, and India, Asia, and basically Asia and Australia, that belt has around 500 species. And in India alone, there are around 90 species found, various ficus trees or ficus species are found. It's particularly diverse in the Northeast and the Andamans. And there are various forms, right? So they are climbers, they can be vines, they can be stranglers. They are also found as bonsai. If you go to nursery, you will see a certain ficus species made into bonsais. They are also ornamental, can be ornamental plants too. So they come in various forms. And why are fig trees so important? They are considered as keystone species. Keystone species are species which have overarching or disproportionately large influence on their environment surrounding them. So fig trees are one of this keystone species because it influences a lot of different plants as well as animals. These fig trees, they fruit asynchronously. That means that while one tree is fruiting, another tree doesn't. But overall, in a year, there is a continuous supply of food. Say, for example, in a forest, there is one tree after another tree which keeps fruiting, and animals, for animals such as birds and mammals, there is a continuous supply of food. Not only this, there are various interaction which happens on the fig tree. There are mammals, there are different birds, there are insects which at various stages of fig development, these various interactions happen, and we'll talk about this in detail later in this class. We already talked about diversity of fig trees in the world as well as in India. And fig trees are important to study to understand fig and Fig-wasp mutualism. Mutualism is where both parties are benefited, both fig as well as wasp are benefited by this interaction, and we'll talk about this in detail. Figs also has influenced various cultures. Gautam Buddha attained moksha or enlightenment sitting under a fig or a ficus tree. Its figs are also have a mention in Bible. Figs also are part of various tribal practices. So figs are really, really important to study. Before going into figs, we need to understand a little bit about the flower anatomy. Right? So forget about various words here, but what you need to understand is flower has male and female reproductive parts. Male part is anthers, where basically there are basically there are pollens which are held in this male reproductive part, and that can fall on of the same flower or a different flower, basically on a female reproductive part. So the female reproductive part has stigma, style, and ovary. Stigma is the sticky part where it kind of deposits the pollen grains, and then they travel through the style and reaches the ovary, where there are various ovules. So that's about flower anatomy. And flowers are arranged either single is known as flower, but multiple flowers, a collection of flowers is known as inflorescence. And there can be various types. I'm just showing you pictures or schematic representation of some of these. It can be raceme or spike, spandex, catkin, a combination of this. This is racemose, corymb, or umbel. So these are various arrangements of flowers on a stalk. Why I'm telling you is I'm coming to fig inflorescence. One more thing before we get to fig inflorescence. Flowers can be of monoecious, it can have a monoecious arrangement or a dioecious. It can be in a dioecious plant or hermaphrodites. So let's get to what is that. Monoecious plant, where it has both male and female reproductive flowers or parts in the same plant. Those are known as monoecious plants. Dioecious plants is basically two separate plants. So the female reproductive or the female flowers are present on one plant, and the male flowers are present on another plant. So dioecious plants help basically out. It helps mixing it helps in genetic diversity, where you know genetic material from one plant has to mix with another plant where there is a male flower totally. In hermaphrodite flowers, basically both male and female flowers are found in the same, actually male and female parts are found on the same flowers. So with this background, we will now go into studying fig inflorescence. This is known as syconium. The inflorescence itself is known as syconium. That is, basically it has a fleshy receptacle. This whole thing is fleshy. This is of course a raw cut open, a fruit which is raw, but this whole thing becomes fleshy, and it has tiny male and female flowers inside. And this is known as ostiole, or basically a hole through which fig-wasps enter. So this is a raw fig fruit cut open, and this is a ripe fig fruit. The whole thing is actually inflorescence. So these are a bunch of flowers sitting inside a receptacle, but we even call the fruit as fig fruit, but it's actually an inflorescence. Okay, so let's look at it more schematically. Here is a picture. So this is monoecious fig inflorescence, where both male and female flowers are present together. So this is the ostiole, which I was talking about. This is a tiny hole in which fig wasps enter. And male flowers with anthers are represented like this, right? So these are all male flowers. And female flowers, there are two kinds. One is a long style flower. This is a long style flower. So this is a style, and this is the stigma. These are the ovaries. Okay. So females flowers are of two kinds. One is a long style flower and another is a short style flower. Okay. So you can see both female flowers, long style and short style, and male flowers are present in a monoecious syconium. This is an immature syconium, that means it's still raw. Mature syconium are represented in a different color. Okay, all these pictures are taken from this book, I Think Biology. Okay, so now let's look at the life cycle of a fig and how Fig-wasp influences the life cycle of a fig. Okay, so let's go from here. This is a female wasp. A female wasp, already it's coming from a different fig fruit, fig inflorescence, and it is laden with pollen, right? So it has come laden with pollen, and a female wasp enters the syconium through that ostiole, right? So female wasp has traveled and it has entered the syconium through the ostiole, and then what it does is it lays eggs in some of the flowers and it pollinates some other flowers and then it dies. So that's what the female wasp does. Okay, so where does it lay egg and which flower does it pollinate? Basically, remember I told you about these long styled and gall flowers, short styled flowers. Basically, the long styled flowers, here it can't basically put eggs. When I mean eggs, it's eggs of these wasp. Okay, so the female wasps can't reach the ovary here. It can't reach the ovary because there is a long style. So this is the ovary, this is a long style. The female wasp's ovipositor. Ovipositor is a structure through which eggs are laid. Okay, so female wasps' ovipositor are short, so it can't reach the ovary to lay an egg when it encounters long style flowers. So the long style flowers, it just pollinates. That means that the pollen grains which has come from another tree is used to pollinate these long style flowers. So long style flowers are pollinated, whereas these short style flowers, also known as gall flowers, that basically the ovaries are kind of up, right? So the female wasp can actually pierce into these ovaries and lay an egg, and this in turn will turn into gall flowers. That means that the flower basically the ovaries are helping the wasp larva develop, and these are known as gall flowers. Right, so I know there is a lot to remember, but we will go over it again. We'll summarize it again, but please be with me when I'm describing the life cycle of fig and fig wasp. So the female wasp lays eggs in some flowers. Those are the long style flowers, and then those are the gall flowers, and it pollinates other flowers. Right, so you will get some fig seeds and some gall harboring wasp larvae. Both of them are parallelly developing, right? Fig seeds are also developing, the wasp larvae is also developing, and that's what happens. And then male wasps, the larvae basically becomes males and females, but males are the first to come out. Males are like this. They have very tiny antenna. Look at the antenna of the female. Antenna are like nose for insects, right? So antenna is through which it smells, it detects smell. So female wasps have long antenna, whereas males have very, very tiny antenna. And they have very rudimentary eyes. See, the eyes are very small here, whereas here female wasps have big eyes. We'll come to why that is in a minute. And male wasps, basically all the function of a male wasp is to fertilize the females. They go mate with the, once the females come out, they mate with the females, and basically they dig a tunnel through this is probably the tunnel. They dig a hole on the mature syconium, and then they die. Basically they're making a hole so that the mated females can get out of the syconium, and then they fly towards another fig inflorescence. So that's the life cycle of this fig wasp and also the fig. So basically, to go over it again, a female wasp enters and a syconium, and it lays eggs in some and pollinates another. And basically, both fig trees and gall flowers, fig seeds and gall flowers, are simultaneously being produced. And then once the wasp is mated, female basically gets out of the syconium, right? So the males never see the day, right? So they never get out of a fig fruit. So that's why they don't have to have a big eyes. They don't have to have a big antenna. So their whole life is spent inside, um, inside the syconium. Now, if you happen to cut open some of the ficus or fig fruits, you will see several of these wasps. In fact, we do this as a practical in our own university, and you see it's in the right season, you'll see larvae as well as wasps. Actually, if you cut open a fig, you'll see that. Now, what you get in the market, those figs are very different, and those don't have these wasps. All right, so moving on. Now the system becomes slightly more complicated. Till now, I talked about monoecious figs, and now I'm going to be talking about dioecious figs, right? So let's recap monoecious figs. This is an immature fig. Remember, immature are depicted in green color, and mature syconium are depicted in pink color. Right? So in immature fig of a monoecious plant, and this is a mature syconium of a monoecious plant where there is both male and female wasps developing, and there is this is represented as, this little thing is represented as is basically wasp egg, and this pink thing is a fig seed. So both seeds and wasps are produced in monoecious plants, monoecious figs. Okay, whereas in dioecious there are of two kinds. One is basically a hermaphrodite fig. Another is a female, where only all the seeds, all the flowers inside a mature syconium will turn into seeds. We'll come to that. Basically, what happens here is, so in dioecious figs, so let's look at this. Here, there are only long styled flowers, right? So here, when a male or when a female comes in, it can't reach these long styled flowers to oviposit them. So all of these flowers turn into seeds. Okay, so in dioecious plants, so there are two kinds. One is where all of these have long styled flowers and all of them become seeds. Whereas in the other kind, that's the hermaphrodite kind, it has both male and female flowers. This is the male flower. You see here, there are some of these are anthers, represented as male flowers, and there are mostly short-styled ovaries. These will turn into gall flowers, gall fruits. That means they turn into wasps. So there will be some long styled flowers, but mostly there are short styled female flowers. So all of them will turn into wasps, and of course there are some male flowers here. So the question is, how do these, how do female wasp even enter? It's of no use for a wasp to enter these female only female syconiums, right? So the point here is that these female only, long styled only, the syconium which has only long styled flowers, these actually have to attract a wasp in order for it to pollinate, and pollinate this inflorescence and turn into actual fig fruits with a lot of seeds, right? So how does it do that? I'll let you think about it. I'll come to this at the very end, or this will be given as a question. One hint is that these syconium, they produce a chemical volatile cocktail, basically a combination of chemicals which are mimicking a hermaphrodite flower. That means that wasps are fooled to think that, oh, this flower, this syconium or inflorescence, also it smells exactly like this. So they are fooled to enter. They are deceived to make to enter this syconium, and once they enter, of course, they can't lay egg, but they end up pollinating most of these flowers, and that's how the plant manages to keep this system going. It's fascinating, right? Okay, to summarize everything, there are various reproductive strategies in figs: monoecious, dioecious, which is hermaphrodite, and dioecious female flowers. So in the monoecious, both male and female flowers are in the same syconium, and male and female flowers are dispersed throughout the syconium, and both long-styled and short-styled female flowers are produced, and because of this they are produced both seeds as well as wasps. Okay, that's got to do with monoecious reproductive strategy. In dioecious, in the hermaphrodite system, both male and female flowers are in the same syconium. Male flowers are present near that ostiole, and female flowers are concentrated at the base. You saw that in the figure in the previous slide. And there are short-styled female flowers. So all of them, or most of them, get turned into basically wasps, and very few are produced as seeds. And in the dioecious, or the female, plants or reproductive strategies, only female flowers are present, and basically they have long-styled female flowers, and all of them will become seeds, and very, very few wasps are present. And these are the ones which employ deception, or they deceive wasps because they mimic a volatile or a chemical blend, which are basically volatile compounds of that of a hermaphrodite syconium. So wasps think that the smells, the smells are similar, so wasps are deceived and they come inside this dioecious syconium only to basically pollinate the entire long-styled female flowers, and they produce seeds instead of wasps. Okay, so you see that fig is really dependent on fig wasps in order for pollination, so that seeds can be produced, and fig wasp is also very much dependent on fig syconium in order to raise its own babies. Those are the larvae, and which turn into male and female wasps. So this is fig wasp mutualism. In fact, there are specific, each fig species has its own specific fig wasp. So it's species specific fig wasp, right? So there are as many fig wasps or more fig wasps as there are fig species around the world, right? So Shravanti Upaluri would have talked about, a specific paper, this specific paper where she would have talked about how to understand and read a scientific paper. This is just a example of that paper where basically you see wasps here. This is a female or a wasp which is inside syconium. So you can see it has a short ovipositor. This is a pollinator wasp. What you see here with the long ovipositor, remember ovipositors are those which are basically a reproductive part of a wasp through which it lays an egg. So only female wasps have these ovipositors, right? So these are basically parasitoid wasps which sit outside a syconium. This is a fig syconium. This is a fig syconium. It's sitting outside and it's putting its long needle-like ovipositor into the syconium. Here you can see the schematic here. It's putting its ovipositor into the syconium and it's depositing an egg. So what happens here is it's called a parasitoid because it lays its own egg on top, or its larvae starts feeding on the pollinators or the pollinator wasp larvae. So parasitoids are those which feed on other organisms. So here the fig parasitoid depends on um, the wasp, the pollinator wasp, its wasp larva it depends on and it feeds on it. So it's this fig wasp thing. It's not just fig and fig wasp. There are parasitoid wasp larvae which are developing in this fig syconium. So you'll study in detail about this paper elsewhere. But what I wanted to show you is this scanning electron microscope pictures of these ovipositors. These are all pictures of ovipositors. Of course, it's a blown up image here. Don't think that they are this big. The fig wasp itself is a few millimeter, long, and the ovipositors are tiny, of course. But what is important here is I've written as structure mirrors function. That means that for different function, if it's a if it needs a long ovipositor, the structure is designed like that. If it needs to drill into the syconium, then it will have some kind of a small drill bit kind of a thing where it's strong enough to drill the syconium. So basically, the wasp has evolved in such a way that the wasp ovipositor, the female wasp's ovipositor structure mirrors what it needs to function, what the task it needs to perform. You'll see more about this in class which Shravanti talks about. All right. So all these examples are to tell you that really the fig and fig wasp mutualism is really co-evolved, where structures are have evolved to perform a function, and both the systems can't live without each other. Right. So now I'm moving away from the wasp, but I'm looking at a big picture. And this is basically, we are saying that this syconium is like a microcosm, right? That means that it's like an ecosystem inside it. There are pollinator wasps. Of course, there is male and female syconia, and there are pollinator wasps which pollinate these flowers, and also produce its own babies. But there are predators waiting outside as soon as these wasps come out from one syconium to go into another syconium. There are predators like ants, spiders, dragonflies, which are waiting to grab these pollinator wasps and feed on them. And there are non-pollinator fig wasps that are such as gallers and parasitoids. We talked about parasitoids earlier, which also depend on these pollinator wasps, and they're inside the syconium. Right? And there are nematodes. Nematodes are worms which are found, which are found to hitchhike on these, using these wasps to get to another fruit. Then there are birds and monkeys which feed on these figs, right? And also they help in dispersing the fig fruits and fig seeds elsewhere, right? So there are predation, there is parasitism, there is mutualism, there is cheating with these. So that there is mimicry which is going on with respect to those chemicals. So there is all kinds of interactions which are going on in this fig syconium. That's why it's known as fig microcosm, right? And this is how you draw a mind map of all these interactions. And finally, I would like to end by reiterating that figs are considered as keystone species. There are close to 1,000 bird species and close to 300 mammals which are in around the world which feed on figs. These are examples of some of the Indian species. There are giant squirrel, Indian giant squirrel, lion-tailed macaques and great hornbills, all found in Western Ghats, which feed on fig fruits. There are of course fig-wasp, which we talked about it in detail. Right. So to summarize, fig trees are considered as keystone species because of its disproportionate effect on the ecosystem. And syconium is an inflorescence found specifically in figs. And each ficus species has its own specific pollinator wasp. And both fig and fig wasp life cycles are closely, intricately intertwined and co-evolved. And fig syconium can be considered as a microcosm. Close to 1,000 bird species and 300 mammal species feed and depend on figs. So that's the end of this class. Thanks a lot.